On second.
Steve, how you doing? Thanks for weighing in on the camera deal. I was fixing to email you and text you.
Careful.
Mm-hmm.
Popped up out of the weeds.
All right, looks like we're live and ready to roll. Looks like it is 4:32, and we will call the meeting of the Kansas City Commission to order. With that, Commissioner Kramer, would you send the invocation, please?
I will. Please pray with me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, and we're thankful for the day that you've provided us. Thankful for the people that are in the room. We ask that you be with us as we listen and make the best possible decisions we can for this great city that we live in. Please bring rain, Lord. We ask that our area needs it significantly, and I ask that you just let it flow down upon our area so that you can help our area to prosper even more. Lord, we just thank you so much for all that you've given us and blessed us with. In your name we pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that takes us to the approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 21st, 2026.
There's no changes. I'll move we approve.
Second.
Have a motion second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Those like sign. Motion passes. Item number 5, public comments from interested citizens. Okay. And I think, yeah, we do have, and we'll address it on item 7. So, we do want to acknowledge, I think this is City Secretary Week, and we do appreciate all Gretchen does for us, and just the leadership there, and we appreciate you very much. And Joe?
Pretty great. So,
Okay.
Gretchen, our TMCA chairman, is it chairman or president? Okay, president. So she's in full force across the state of Texas now. So, head city secretary of our organization. A lot of thankless nights of agenda packet postings. You're the first person that has ever said that. We appreciate you, Gretchen, so much.
We appreciate that and great leadership for the city. All right, item number 6, consider and take appropriate action on second and final reading of resolution number 13-2026, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving a project funding agreement between Canyon Chamber of Commerce and Canyon Economic Development Corporation related to direct financial assistance for annual Independence Day celebration and Canyon fireworks display. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, this is the second reading for the Resolution 13-2026. The CEDC Board met on March 24th and approved the project funding agreement in an amount not to exceed $15,000, and that is a budgeted dollar amount that we have in this fiscal year budget. We held a public hearing on April the 16th, and there was no opposition.
Move we approve.
Second.
Have a motion second to approve resolution number 13-2026. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mike. Item number 7, consider and take appropriate action on wastewater treatment and irrigation property leases agreement. Bo?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The current wastewater farm lease expires June 30th of this year, but this is more than just a farm lease. The leasee provides a vital role in the water treatment process and upholding the city's TCEQ permit requirements. Because of its importance, the city executed a formal RFP process for this lease and received 2 submissions. The submissions were reviewed and scored according to criteria such as experience, capability, qualifications, compatibility with the city's wastewater application and environmental goals, the quality of the submitted operational plan, past performance, and available resources. Of the 2 responses, Darren Johnson received the highest average score. Staff recommends the approval of the wastewater agreement, irrigation farm lease agreement with Darren Johnson. And this is a 5-year lease with an optional extension of another 5 years.
I move to approve.
Do have, I think we have a motion. Do have Wade Davis is signed in to speak in this public hearing. So, Bob, before we go down that road, we'll, thank you, Bob. Wade, would you like to speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry about the misunderstanding earlier. This is my first time. So I'm Wade Davis, been a lifelong City of Canyon resident until 4 years ago, moved out right outside of town here. Address, do I have to state my address and all that?
If you would.
Okay, address is
Yes.
19281 Sonoma Drive, Canyon, Texas, 79015. Does that satisfy the, okay, thank you very much. Mayor, Commission, city officials, thank you all for allowing me to speak. I'm into opposing of your resolution up here. This is an election year on the city farm. As you know, it is an uphill battle to displace an incumbent. I am puzzled at how the current tenant can grade higher than me on almost every category. For example, experience, qualifications, and capacity. I am truly puzzled at how the current tenant could grade so much higher than me on this metric. I farmed with my dad for the first 20 years of my life. Since he died, I've been farming on my own for the last 20 years with significant use of pivot irrigation and a focus on soil health. I've known the current tenant for 20 years. As far as I know, he's only been farming on his own for the last 8 years or so. How did the current tenant score so much higher than me on this metric? References and past performance. I am puzzled how the metric was actually evaluated. I checked with my references and none of them have been contacted. So what are the references actually for? Also, I'm puzzled by the past performance you are evaluating. I've never been a tenant of the city farm, so I don't have any direct past performance with you. I have, however, managed to grow my farm with all the ups and downs in the markets and the weather for the last 20 years. So that should indicate a pretty decent past performance. Moreover, I'm not sure if you recall the bad windstorm we had last March when we had the 50 to 60 car pileup on I-27. Do you recall who was farming the land to the west of the interstate where the pileup occurred? That would be the current tenant, and that was your farm. Anyone with farmland had soil blowing that day. There is a vast difference between a 2 and 3 mile visibility and a 20 to 40 foot visibility. I drove that interstate early afternoon on March 14th between Canyon and Toya. I took several videos and pictures on my phone. Lost my place here. Only one area along the interstate had blackout conditions to cause a massive vehicle accident. All farmers along the 33-mile stretch I drove had adequate wind warnings days in advance to implement sufficient soil conservation techniques to prevent a potentially life-threatening situation on the interstate. Is this past performance rating higher than my 20 years of good standing with the USDA FSA office? Or 20 years of good standing with the Natural Resource Conservation Field Office? Or 20 years of good standing with all of my vendors? Are these facts being considered in your evaluation for past performance? Have you considered the liability of the city if you continue to lease to a tenant with a history of poor soil conservation practices? Financial terms. This evaluated metric is flawed. Let me explain why no one could bid as much as the current tenant. If he is awarded the lease, he knows he can plant a spring crop and get it insured for 2026 due to USDA planting deadlines. If I get it, I can't take possession until July. At that point, I would have to farm it, get it in shape before I had a chance to agronomically plant a 2026 insured summer crop.
If I plant that late, I don't qualify for federal crop insurance. But now my risk of getting caught by an early freeze in the fall is sharply elevated and can't be protected with insurance. This means I can take an enormous amount of risk of losing money the first year of the lease. I'll break even the second year. I'll turn a profit in year 3. That's how long it will take to make up for losing half of the growing season of the first year of the lease. One might argue that after 5 years of lease, it wouldn't change hands until July 2031, which doesn't give spring crops enough time to mature for harvest. So, as your current model, if the current tenant were to be awarded the lease, he would get an extra half growing season, more than if I were to win the lease, which equates to an extra crop. On the last one, compatibility. What is this actually measuring? How well do you think we're going to get along? That would be a good question for my references. What would be this compatibility metric based on, since I've never rented anything from the city or had any conversations with the folks whom graded the scores? In conclusion, I'm honestly puzzled by these evaluation metrics, on how these evaluation metrics were applied to the current situation. I thought this process would be more fair and objective. It seems like there is a lot of relevant information that was not being considered. I thought the process would be designed to be fair for all applicants, but after seeing how the process is actually applied, it seems flawed at best and biased at worst. It appears no one can rate higher than your incumbent tenant. Please keep these concerns in mind as you consider the staff recommendations. Thank you all.
Thank you, Wayne.
Does anybody need a copy? I've got copies if anybody.
I'll also allow any questions. Darren Johnson's here for Darren, or would you like to say anything, Darren? Okay. With that, do we have any other questions by commission? We have a motion on the floor. A second. I'll second the motion. With that,
Does the city want to explain the rubric? Who would be the one?
If I can pull up the RFP process real quick.
Were all those reviewers internal reviewers? I noticed one wasn't, but
That is correct. All but one was.
and are the reviewers the same for both? Like is reviewer number 1, reviewer number 1 on both?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, reading from the published RFP. Qualifications, experience, relevant agriculture and environmental experience, past performance on similar leases. Proposed use and operation plan, description of farming activity, effluent management strategy, soil and water conservation practices. Necessary equipment, assert possession of necessary equipment to fulfill the permit and lease requirements. Financial proposal, proposed annual lease amount. References, 3 references, at least 1 professional for some other work. Crop plan for July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Required certified other forms, RFP proposal form, Israeli verification form, copy of pictures questionnaire. These were the items that were listed as proposal requirements in the submission. For descriptions on the evaluation criteria, demonstrated experience, capability, qualifications, compatibility with wastewater application environmental goals, proposed financial terms, quality of the operation plan, references and past performance, possession of necessary tools, equipment, and resources.
So did we contact references?
I leave that to the evaluators. All the information and contact information is provided to these evaluators. They also addressed one other item, lease terms and conditions that was included in the RFP. The beginning of the lease states that it's no later than July 1st, 2026, knowing that there would be a necessary transition period. And it also states in their transition, an approved transition plan from the start and end of the lease, knowing that there would be an overlap between the two leases.
And just to remind the commission, due to soil remediation considerations, staff spent some time working on this, including lease revisions. We did so in conjunction with the Public Works Department because we have a crop consultant on board. Joe can verify that. The crop consultant is going to be working with us. This is not a standard farm, okay? It is not a standard farming operation. It is an effluent disposition facility, okay? That's important to remember. It's not just a piece of wheat ground out there that you farm. So the crop consultant is going to help with recommendations on remediation of excessive sodium content in the soil. And that's what we're working on now. So part of the consideration we had this go round on the lease, and we were not required to do the RFP. We did so because we thought it would be a more fair process. The city commission could simply take action and decide to extend the lease and name the lessee. The RFP procedure was not required, but staff did expend the time to go through the RFP procedure to have multiple evaluators on this project do the scoring and evaluation. Really as an aid to the commission to bring forward this process where you could look at the scoring criteria, which is, there's a 10-point differential, and you can also look at the bid price on the leasehold, and there's a significant difference there. What we're trying to do is see how many proposals are out there and just simply do the diligence to make sure that we've looked at the best deal for the city, and so staff brought forward through this process what is considered to be, based on staff recommendation, the best deal for the city. Main thing is to keep this plant operating as an effluent disposition facility continuously. As you know from our prior discussions with other considerations that we've had to deal with in the last couple of years, and I won't go back through those because everybody remembers what they are. This plant has to operate 24/7, 365. So that is the main function, the main criteria. We do not have a discharge permit for the creek. This is our only way of disposing of effluent through the original EPA project that dates back to the 80s.
I would love to hear y'all's comments because you guys, all three of you, are in that ag area way more than I am. It's difficult for me to decipher all of that. I'd love to hear y'all's opinion.
From my standpoint, both of these gentlemen do an excellent job farming. I know Wade very well. Wade's done some custom harvest for me before, and he and his dad did. His dad also did a very good job farming. So they're doing an excellent job from that standpoint. I also believe that Darren Johnson has done a really good job with City Farm. Probably hasn't farmed quite as long, but he does have experience with City Farm, and we've had a couple of prior tenants that One was a really good guy, but didn't do a great job, with the farming piece out there, which was really a detriment to us. And then I think as far as just compatibility, the next tenant, we had some issues there, and so maybe some major issues. Right now, I think both those things have gone really well with Darren in the mix. And so, I look at that and look then at the difference in the dollars in the mix. And I understand the timing issue this first year away, but I look at the difference in the dollars there and think that would be substantial for the city. And so I see Wade does. He's got more years experience farming, but Darren also has the years experience, and there are a lot of concerns. I met with our crop consultant, and we've got some major issues with salt and how to take care of that and what we need to do to farm and to mitigate that. And so I think Darren's also, got some history working with the city on that piece too. And then I also look too, I was a young farmer for 8 years myself, and still farm a little bit, but I used to do it full time, and pretty typical, and I know this is not typical, but pretty typical if somebody has done a good job and working with the landlord, if the landlord feels like it needs to be a higher lease, typically the landlord would go and try to work that out and all too. And I know we went out and we bid this, but then bid it and what we've got here is Darren came back with a higher number. So that's my thought. And from a farmer standpoint, I think Wade also is an excellent farmer. One of the better in Randall County. So.
I'm not going to speak to the farming aspect. Even though I grew up in a farm and ranch family, I don't think I have enough experience to be able to tell you what the farming aspect would be. But this is the way I look at it. I'm a very literal thinker. And so if I throw out the lowest score of each one and I throw out the highest score of each one, then I look at, that way it takes out any type of bias, if you will. Take out both of those, and then I look at what's left, and it's still going to give me Darren Johnson at the end. So that takes out whoever may have swayed one way and who may have swayed another, and look at what's left in the middle, and that's still where it's going to land. So I have to trust the people that are rated that know those areas better than I do. So.
You've done a little farming.
Yeah, the problem not with either one of you guys, no way, I don't know anybody who can work on farming. But all these figures are given to us, we have a complaint that they weren't done right. I don't know how they did it. I've never seen any data, how they did it. I don't know any of them. They just present that he's better than him. I don't know how it's figured or nothing. I never have liked that process because I don't have a chance to understand where I could make a decision. I just can't make decisions out of what's going on, why. Because there's a lot of factors involved. All we have is the end. I don't have to make a decision.
Are they always a 5-year lease?
They have been in our experience.
Since I've been.
Yeah, but
Did-
didn't we have a couple automatic extensions or something like that?
Extended just this last, to get to this point.
And the date issue came up with our last leasee. And I know I wasn't on this committee, but I know there was a great deal of time put into how the dates work and when a crop comes in and when a crop comes out. I mean, trying to figure out how to make that work, because that was an issue with our last contract, with our previous leasing.
And the issue there was, sometimes certain crops you have to dry the ground out so you can get equipment into harvesting. And so if you have too much of that planted in one crop, it creates problems. So that's why crop rotation and timing is very important.
And just being able for that leasee to get their crop out before the other one starts, and what that means to the other one.
I don't have much to add, Mr. Mayor. Personally, I have spent over 100 hours on some of this. A lot of it's a learning curve. I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's a perfect system at all. We're just trying to wait our way through it as best we can to offer up a good suggestion. Ultimate decision comes down to the commission, whether you like the scores or don't. So you have complete autonomy to make that decision as a board. The biggest thing, the challenge is the staff was focused on was soil mitigation. We have spent hundreds of hours with our crop consultant and with each other on soil mitigation and how we move forward so we don't end up in a detriment, in a soil condition that we can't come back from. Now, is this perfect? Did we score perfect? Probably not. As we've tried to do it as objective as we can. Both these individuals can do the job.
So, addressing Commissioner Lyons' comments, we totally understand where you're coming from, but we don't want the commission to have to sit through 50 hours of meetings in order to receive a staff recommendation on something. What we're trying to do is synthesize that down and boil it down to the point you are able to look at that and make a decision based on that criteria. So, in our view, it's better for us to spend the time so you don't have to go through all that detail that Joe was talking about and the number of hours and meetings that would be required in order to acquire that information directly.
You introduce complaints.
I don't see Mr. Davis's complaint as being directed to the RFP process. I think he is complaining about the fact of scoring. But as has been pointed out earlier, if you throw out the high and low numbers, then you eliminate the bias and you come up with the same result.
I scored both pretty close, Paul, as one of the reviewers. I said I scored both of them pretty close as one of the reviewers. Mm-hmm.
Well, with that, let's have more questions. Do have a motion and second. So at this point, we'll go ahead and vote on that.
I do have one more question. On that financial terms, is that financial terms, does the reviewer have the ability to give this scoring number?
No, sir, that score
That's a
number is
percentage.
based on the highest amount gets the full amount of the points. The second lowest gets a percentage of the difference. If it's 5, highest is 10, the next is 5, the 10 gets the full points, the 5 gets 50% of the.
So there's not a goal financial terms. For the highest bidder automatically defaults to getting the full points.
It does, the full 15.
If you'd had 15 bidders, it would have changed. They would have all just broken
It would
this.
have based on a percentage of that highest bid. We did also set a minimum bid amount in the RFP as part of the response. The minimum was $45,000 a year.
Well, unless there's any other questions, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of the motion to award the lease to Darren Johnson, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. And motion does not pass. I think we'll probably bring it back and perhaps we'll have a full commission next time. We can discuss it some more and potentially give commissioners that have some questions as far as some of that ability to do some more research and ask some questions.
Tell me what I need, see if that, hey, I'm making some
Well, the only other thing we possibly could provide, other than the RFP itself, would be their submissions. So that's pretty much it. I will
I think if you look at the submissions and then look at what the categories mean, and then what was the criteria for each category based on how they got to that score.
I will consult with Mr. Hester. We'll bring this back.
What's the top score in each area and how is that I understand a little bit of this because we do this in my world as well, but I don't understand what each criteria necessarily means, so I'm relying on the city to tell me that, but yeah, how that number was determined.
We probably just need to take references off if we're not gonna contact them.
And we can do that in the meantime.
That is a little troublesome, contact. Once they contacted your references.
We can do that in the meantime before we bring it back.
They should contact them.
We can definitely, we can do that. Paul, absolutely. We'll make a note to go ahead and do that. We'll make sure everybody gets that. So we'll have one person call the references.
So one thing that can't change is the reviewing and evaluation by the city manager, director of public works, wastewater superintendent, wastewater foreman, and a consulting soil scientist specializing in land application and waste management. Those are the reviewers.
All right, well, we'll come back at the end, future city commission meeting and address it again. So, okay, takes us to item number 8. Consider and take appropriate action on presentation of the annual report for downtown tax increment investment zone number 1, City of Canyon, Texas. Joe.
A little bit late in presenting this, but it's brought to my attention, we had brought this to the full commission. This is the annual report on TERS number 1 for September 30, 2025 fiscal year. We did present this report to the TERS board back in December. They've reviewed it and approved it. We've also filed this report with the state comptroller on January 22nd as required by state legislation. And we did that as soon as the state's system for filing those reports was available. Just to kind of give you a brief summary of the report, during the fiscal year 24-25, we received $71,453 in the TERS funding. That's $34,667 from the city, $33,840 from the county, and then we had interest earnings of $2,946. The valuation for that fiscal year was $8 million. This is for the city, $8,478,000. That's the difference between the net taxable value for tax year 2024 of that whole area. And you can see a map there of the TERS 1 area. So the $28,099,693, I'm sorry, $28,099,693. And then the base year, which was tax year 21, that was fiscal year 21-22. So that had increased to $8,478,523. We have no expenses yet from the TERS. And so at the end of fiscal year 2025, we had $116,677 fund balance for the TERS. That's the report on fiscal year 25. We'll kind of give you a projection of what 25-26 will look like. We've budgeted revenue of $109,000. So you can see that's almost going to double the balance that was there at the end of fiscal year 25, just in this fiscal year. The TERS has already grown pretty significantly from where we started at fiscal year 21 or tax year 21. Our valuation back then was $19 million. the value that we have for this fiscal year that we're in right now, 25-26, is now 32 million. So it's captured over 12 million, 12,621,000. So that zone has done what we hoped it would do. It's done what it was created to do, and is growing. There's been several businesses added in that zone even since it was begun in 2019. Do you have any other questions that I could answer? Bo will be speaking a little bit to some possibilities of thoughts for what to do with these funds as we're looking at some projects coming on here in the next few years. So he'll be addressing that in his CIP presentation here in the next couple of items.
And there's still properties that are turning over in this zone on 15th Street, so there's the potential for continued growth is right there in front of us. And it includes, Pondaseta is included in this. And so at some point, when they purchase that property, then it'll come in and have an effect on this also. So as Joel said, it's doing exactly what we thought it would do.
Very good. Any other questions for Bill?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thanks, Joel. Item number 9, presentation on the 2026 capital improvement plan. Bob.
Sir, thank you. Every year, we provide an update to the city's planned capital improvement projects as part of the budget process. Capital projects are long-term, high-cost, and non-recurring investments into the city's infrastructure that improve the service operations, and the aesthetic of the community. These projects require large financial commitments, often over multiple years. Due to their significant impact on the budget, this is an opportunity to discuss current and planned projects. First, I'm going to look at projects that have been completed since last May. There's the installation of the customizable lights on the East Water Tower that lights up the WT logo. This was a joint project with WT with a shared cost of just under $83,000. Then the sewer utilities were extended to the Myra Park development. That has been completed. And now as the developer is building homes, they are progressively reimbursing the city roughly 25% of the cost of those extensions. Also related to sewer utilities at Myra Park, select sewer lines were oversized to also provide wastewater service to future developments at Section 4. The city's cost for this oversizing was under $166,000, and similar oversizing is still needed for water utilities. The CDBG downtown alley between 6th and 7th Streets, that project was completed in March. Electric lines have been moved underground, water, sewer, and manholes have been replaced, and the alley has been repaved. The total cost was about $630,000, but $500,000 of that was provided for this project from a CDBG grant. The cost of the city was actually $195,000 under what was planned. And we have a planned use for that underage that I'll mention here in just a moment. Then undersized water mains and alleys between 6th, 7th, and 8th Avenue were replaced in one of the city's original neighborhoods. The total cost was just over $1,144,000 with a $350,000 CDBG grant. Finally, the last completed project that was the purchase of the water rights at Phantom Creek that had a total cost of $255,430. There's a typo there on that original report that says it's over $629,000. The actual cost was $255,430. That was paid from the 2025 series COs, and it did come in $3,200 more than what was planned. Moving on to active projects. In February 2024, the fire department ordered a grass truck to replace the 30-year-old truck that is currently in use. The total cost is about $300,000 and is supported by a $120,000 grant for the Texas A&M Forest Service, and delivery is expected this June. So thank you, Callis. The city has received the first draft of the master drainage plan for review, and the consultant is evaluating potential projects related to that. About $98,000 of the budgeted $250,000 has been spent so far, and this project is supported by a $225,000 grant. Improvements are underway at Hunsley Park. ADA compliant ramps, sidewalks have been installed, and the new restroom structure is under active construction. So far, $76,500 of this project's $175,000 has been spent. The forced main replacement project is improving the sewer main to the treatment plant from an 18-inch line to a 24-inch line. This project is only awaiting final inspection before it is considered complete. And this is the final project that is supported by coronavirus state and local fiscal fund recovery funds. As of last week, the city is in compliance with all annual required reports, and the final report for those funds will be due to the Treasury Department April of 2027. For improvements at the golf course, the irrigation system, water storage tanks are in place and operating. Repairs are being made to the cart barn, and the restroom structure is being constructed. So far, about $4.6 million has been spent on this project. Now the next group of active projects are all funded by the 9.75 million COs that were issued last year. First is the redundant water line under I-27. During TxDOT's construction of I-27, the section of water line that connects the north elevated tower to the Kim Road pump station that runs under the highway needed to be replaced. But that line is over 40 years old, so the city installed a second redundant section of water line that runs parallel to the current line in preparation for the installation of a full redundant line connecting the water tower to the pump station. I just want to say it's only the section under the highway that this project was for. It doesn't yet connect to the water tower. It doesn't yet connect to the pump station. It was only what was under the highway that was replaced. The installation of this section of water line is complete, but the city is awaiting final engineering costs. The lumberyard is working to connect its sewer line to the city's lines. Once complete, the city has committed to reimburse $225,000 of the total cost. There are some ongoing issues with this project that the contractor is working with a consultant to resolve. Phantom Creek utility extensions, $300,000 of the COs is committed to extending water utilities to Phantom Creek. The project itself hasn't started, but the funds are available there in the COs. In the 4th Street ground storage tank, the vault has been installed and the first of 3 bores has been completed to bypass the line when the tank is being constructed, and the construction of the tank is expected to begin this June. Finally, the construction of the wastewater lift station to serve Spring Canyon and Phantom Creek is expected to begin within the next few weeks. Necessary boring under FM 2590 is already completed. Then looking at the projects funded by the 2025 voter approved bond. The new fire engine was ordered in November of last year and expected to arrive this August. Architect and construction manager at risk firms have been contracted for facility construction and renovation projects. The CMAR has completed a bidding process for the fire department burn house and the new building for training classrooms and equipment bays and the physical training facilities, but a guaranteed maximum price has not yet been presented to the city for approval. Before I move on to planned projects, any questions or discussions about completed or active projects? All right, looking at planned projects. The city has been awarded a grant for 5 backup generators to be located at water pump stations and wells to ensure water services are not interrupted in the event of power outages. These generators have become even more critical as Xcel Energy has implemented its planned power outages during dry and windy weather conditions with high risk of grass fires. Last year, the city spent over $93,000 to rent and install generators during this event. However, that cost did include installing electric connections for the generators, which are now in place and available to use in the future.
I know that's taking a while. Where are we at as far as,
Chris, we're still waiting on FEMA, actually. There was a change in scope that they were reviewing, we have not heard back on that.
Dustin, have you talked to Lori recently on that? Okay. We had one that was too big and one was too small, generator capacity. And we almost needed to switch, tweak. That was it. It was the only thing we had to change.
We left the cost the same, we were able to get a couple extras put in there for that same cost. Just
Yeah, 6 to 12, I mean, not quite a year, but we're getting closer. That grant was funded, 3 years ago? It's a 90-10?
22-23 is when we set aside
22-23.
our money for the grant match for this
It
project.
was probably funded the year before, so.
Yeah.
Still waiting on FEMA.
And FEMA's had their own political issues for the last some time.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've been waiting.
Yeah, they've had their share of struggles, so we'll have Lori reach out again from PRPC to see.
yeah, it would save us money if they would have gotten it done sooner.
Yes.
As far as leasing those, but there shouldn't be an issue with,
It was a
being able-
pretty simple, like, change in scope. And I have no answers, unfortunately. That you're preaching to the choir. We've been trying and trying and trying. So we're doing pump station and 4 wells. The Rockwell wells?
that we're leasing the generators.
No.
Oh, that's what-
That's the whole
what-
scope project. We were gonna do the Rockwell wells that were right there, some of them. We'll reach out again. We've reached out a number of times, so.
Well, as mentioned earlier, certain sewer lines at Meyer Park were oversized in preparation for future development at Section 4. The water lines also need to be oversized for that same reason. $200,000 will need to be included in next year's budget for that oversizing for the water. The plans for the Meyer Park development include a green space to manage rainfall runoff. The timing of the developer's construction of this green space is unknown, but it will coincide with the progression of homes being built. The city has committed to reimburse the developer a portion of this green space, roughly about $100,000. About $25,000 a year is being planned to be set aside for when it is needed for that green space. Once it is completed, the city's park department will be responsible for its care. The next planned projects are grouped because they have similar planned funding sources. The first one being MPO grants. And I'm going to be referencing this document here. It's on your PDF, page 51. I'm going to be kind of going back and forth referencing this schedule for how we are funding these specific projects. Grants from the Amarillo Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, are federally funded grants. Projects funded by MPO grants are executed in cooperation with TxDOT. An important timing element for projects that are funded by these grants is that the full grant match must be paid to TxDOT before the construction is bid. Usually construction is billed progressively through the construction. A retainage amount is held until construction is complete. But with MPO projects, the construction phase is administered by TxDOT, not the city, so the grant match must be paid up front. There's a project on here that's also funded by Safe Streets for All grants. With the completion of the Safety Action Plan, the city will be eligible to apply for Safe Streets for All federal grants. These grants are infrastructure projects that aim to eliminate roadway fatalities and serious injuries. with projects such as bike lanes, crosswalks, and speed management improvements. Other funding sources for these projects, the CEDC has committed to provide $50,000 annually for 5 years for these projects, so long as they are related to downtown Canyon. The city plans to set aside $200,000 from the general fund's planned street maintenance each year. This is something we actually started doing 2 years. We're just keeping that $200,000 in there moving forward for capital improvement projects related to streets. And the city will commit 3 of the $200,000 planned annual payments from the sale of Skimmer property to fund these following projects. So the first project is the 8th Street sidewalk that will connect Canyon Elementary School to Canyon Junior High. The total cost is $965,250 with a match of $226,000.
Just the previous, yeah.
Go up a little bit more. Up. Up again. Next one. Right there. As a reminder, that $226,000 must be paid to TxDOT before construction may begin. CISD will reimburse the city 50% of that match after construction is complete, which is expected to be completed this summer.
Chris, pre-con went out on that. You make sure get CISD on that.
Going back to that schedule on page 51.
Linda, excuse me, Bo. Linda and I were driving in from our farm this afternoon as schools had just let out, and I bet there were 100 kids walking from the intermediate to the junior high. I didn't know there were that many of them that were walking, but it was packed. And so, yeah, just will be tremendous to have that in place.
What is it? Thursday, May 14th. So we're having a pre-construction meeting with TxDOT on May 14th.
So looking at the funding schedule, the very first year there in the red is this current year. And the first project at the top is the 8th Street sidewalks. You can see the total cost, $965,250, total match $226,000, and city's portion of the match $113,107. A starting balance of $611 that was spent. That's the initial payment that TxDOT required us to make. That was actually made last fiscal year. And then construction costs, which has also been paid, of $178,002. We had a budgeted amount from the general fund for this project of $113,107, and design costs, which will become due, of $47,600. Once we receive that Canyon ISD reimbursement, looking at the very end, the end balance, it says $1. That's just from rounding. That project will be balanced by the end of this fiscal year. The next project is the first phase of improvements on 15th Street, which will provide additional parking, landscaping, enhanced pedestrian access from South Ridge to 2nd Avenue, including Highway 60 and the railroad crossings. The city is currently working on the solicitation for engineering service for this project. Going back to the schedule again, looking at this current year, you see a total of $2,798,000, total match of $545,000, and the total match is due from the city for that. We see a positive of $195,000. This is what I mentioned on the CDBG downtown grant, amount of money that's been left over that has been completed. That is being applied to this 15th Street Phase 1 project. We made an initial payment to TxDOT for this project of $1,900 in January. And the first payment from CEDC for these projects of $50,000 will be applied to this project as well. So by the end of this year, that project will have over $243,000 available. Going to the next fiscal year, there in the blue. This project is the first one there at the top. We're carrying over that balance from the first year. An additional $200,000 from the general fund is being applied to this project. The second payment of $50,000 from CEDC is being applied to this project. Then we have design and construction costs that year with design reimbursement because the city is paying for those design costs, getting reimbursement from TxDOT for that there. You see a year-end balance of a deficit of just over $50,000. I will also mention 8th Street project right now is looking like it's going to be completed under budget as well, so long as there aren't any change orders. Any savings from that project will be applied to this also. Then that third year, the green one, fiscal year 27-28, the remaining $50,043.42 will come from the general fund that year. The third project is a potential Safe Streets for All grant-funded project that would be sidewalk and crosswalk improvements at the intersection of Hunsley and Country Club Drive near Crestview Elementary, and extending the sidewalk on Country Club Drive in front of the golf course and over the creek.
We tried that. We're talking about roundabouts.
Say no.
They're very exciting.
No roundabouts. No roundabouts.
Yes, very, very interesting topic of discussion. The cost for these improvements isn't yet known, but the city is planning to set aside $152,000 to be available for grant match during that year. Again, going back to the schedule, you can see that in the green, year 3, fiscal year 27-28. Total project costs unknown, total match $152,000. That's coming mostly from the general fund transfer for that year, but also just over $2,000 coming from the Kim Road payment of $200,000. So by the end of that fiscal year, that project will have a zero balance. Next project will be the second phase of 15th Street improvements that will pick up where the first phase finished at 2nd Avenue and then extend the improvements to 4th Avenue. This is another fiscal year funded project. Looking at fiscal year 27-28 again, the green on the bottom of that first page, we start putting aside a large portion, over almost $198,000 from the Kim Road sale, and then CEDC's third payment of $50,000 to that project. So by the end of that fiscal year, there's almost $248,000 set aside available for that project. Going on to the next page, fiscal year 28-29. An additional $200,000 for this project coming in from the general fund, and just over $95,000 coming from that Kim Road sale payment. And all construction costs and design costs coming in that same year, and by the end of that year, finishing with a zero balance for that project. Then there's the planned improvements to 4th Avenue from 14th Street to 17th Street. This is an over $13.5 million project that will include bulb outs on all street parking, for on-street parking, a bike lane, ADA compliant pedestrian pathways, and stormwater improvements. Again, going back to the schedule, you can see we start setting aside TIERS funding. This is going to be the first project that will be funded from the TIERS fund. That's going to be half the city's match for this project of $193,443. Then amount coming from that year's Kim Road payment, $50,000 coming from that year's CDC contribution, and then actually TxDOT's going to be paying for the design costs for this project. And at the end of this year, there is a $50,000 deficit for this project. Because CEDC's commitment is only to downtown related projects, this would be the last downtown related project on the schedule. Their final payment, that 5th payment in 2030, would then be applied to this project in fiscal year 29-30, and that project would then be zero. Now going to looking at another schedule, I mentioned the TIERS fund. This blue schedule here. This is a 20-year projection of the TIERS fund. First half being the first 10 years and the bottom half being 20. You'll see in fiscal year 29 that the one expense there, $193,443, that's for this 4th Street project. That will lower the TIERS fund balance to an estimated $437,785. Now, one thing we're looking at with this balance is this 4th Street project will only touch one side of the square. There's still the west, east, and south side, what we call the U, that still needs to be improved as well. We're looking for this fund balance here in the tiers to grow in order to support that project as well. The next potentially funded, MPO-funded project would be improvement to Hunsley Road, which includes complete subgrade, base, and roadway improvements, an additional travel lane, and a shared use path for pedestrian connectivity, and also stormwater improvements. This is going to take multiple years to fund. This is a very large project. Going back to that second page of the MPO project cash flow, fiscal year 28-29, you'll first see $11,225 set aside for this project. The following year, an additional $400,000 set aside from the general fund and the last contribution from the Kim Road sale. Next year, 2031, an additional $200,000. Next year, an additional $200,000. Finally, in fiscal year 32-33, the remaining $174,000 will be available for this project, with construction happening that year. That's 5 years of funding for this project set aside just for that. This is a very large, very important project, very high priority for our street department. That's a long-term commitment to be able to prepare for that project. Then finally, the final currently planned MPO project is the installation of 5-foot wide sidewalk and curb ramps along 9th Avenue from 8th Street to 19th Street, improving pedestrian access between Canyon Junior High and Reeves Singer Elementary, and also to Connor Park. Funding for that project will begin in fiscal year 32-33 after the Hunsley project there. Looking at all these projects that were grouped together, this is 7 different projects over 9 years with a total cost of over $26 million, but the net cost to the city is only $2.8 million. Very, very heavy on grant funding for these improvements. Before I move on to another funding source, any questions about those projects, the schedule for funding, and that plan for the cash flow?
We're gonna come back to 4th Avenue here in a minute.
Okay. The city is also preparing a grant application for state water supply infrastructure grant that is being administered by the Texas Water Development Board. This is something we have brought up for discussion in the past. It is a one-time 100% grant with no city match for a single submission up to $15 million. In order to receive the highest possible score for prioritization, the included projects need to be shovel-ready at the time the application is submitted. That means all required planning, permitting, regulatory approvals, and acquisitions must be completed at the time of submission. The timing of these projects hasn't yet been determined, but the terms of the grant require all project work be completed by January 31st of 2031, so 5 years. The city is considering including the following projects in this grant application. First is the 4th Avenue water storage tank. This project was already mentioned. It's currently being funded by the 2025 COs. But this project and everything previously spent so far related to this project are eligible to be funded or reimbursed by this grant. If awarded, this grant would free up CO proceeds to use for other projects. Other projects, there's the elevated storage tower and transmission lines to serve Section 4 development. The installation of the remaining redundant water line connecting the North Water Tower to the Kim Road Pump Station, which would connect to the existing section that is currently under I-27, which I mentioned earlier. And then 3 more wells on the property near Rockwell and Georgia. In addition to the specific projects, the city is also planning to set aside money each year from the general and utility funds into the CIP funds for capital projects that may come up due to unforeseen need or opportunities. These funds will be held for water and wastewater line replacement, land easements, and brick street repairs. There aren't currently any projects or locations specifically identified for these funds, but it's understood that there is a general need for these improvements and that preparations need to start being made. The funds will accumulate each year with the annual contributions coming from operations until they are sufficient to fund a project. Any questions or comments that y'all may have?
I'm curious about, and you may not know this, but what's the thinking behind the Water Development Board wanting those to be shovel ready? Like, what benefit is that?
There's a very short time period that they have to spend this money set by the state, and so they've got to get their side of the work done as fast as they can.
So they don't want to be delays in funding for research and trying to figure out if it's doable.
I'll also say that larger cities, it is a requirement that they all be shovel ready. As a smaller city, we can use the grant funds for planning and acquisition and things like that, but we get higher prioritization if we already have those things in place.
Commissioner, I wanted to talk about Fourth Avenue again. I know we have some comments about the U, and I think we need to look at that further, but that may lead to more discussion. Fourth Avenue was actually a fiscal year back, maybe two. It has moved up to 28, 29, so that has moved up in the timing. I remember Commissioner Lyons had mentioned his concern about angled parking changing on the U. We had that conversation and several others have voiced that. My concern on Fourth and building it is we want to make sure everything's cohesive and universal. When that gets built, the intersections get built and the U gets done. So if there's any type of feelings lingering about not wanting to do the angled parking, I think we need to visit those sooner rather than later before this project gets done.
I think we need to with the county, because Bob Robinson was definitely against that. He first one voice opinion, he didn't like it. We need to make sure we get the county board.
And we can, Paul, no doubts. We got a little bit of time. Right now, the way it's currently designed is parallel parking. Sidewalks will be widened 10 to 15 feet, and then it would be parallel parking. And so there's only one way that I can see through changing that. We would probably have to bring everything internal if we wanted to widen the sidewalks and keep angled in that design. We're going to have to eat into the grass, which would make us more county conversations. I just want to get some temperature on that from this commission and some guidance to move forward. I think it would be even worthwhile to even spending some money to look at that together. The last thing I want is to go build Fourth and the intersections not be right, and we change the design of our current downtown plan that includes parallel, when now we're going back to angled. We personally don't care. We are going to lose some spots going to parallel parking. What did we, 30-ish? So that's how many spots we're gonna lose. But I do think if we do want to keep that and do keep widening the sidewalks, which I think is a huge thing to do as well, to have more sidewalk cafes, more retail space, more shops during events. I do think we need to start having dialogue here where we're all good, but also with our county if we do need to move things internal and if they would be willing to allow us to move some of that in. And we probably need to pay a little bit to have some designs looked at by this body.
I think you're right, we need to see both sides, or both something, so we can kind of make a decision, parallel versus angle. Yeah, we gotta have Bob Robinson.
I know it's thrown out that we might have to take out the trees at the courthouse to go that route. I think I would look at probably some sort of a combination of reducing the size of the sidewalks. I wouldn't look to take the trees.
Okay. Cody?
Robin? No, I'm not a huge fan of parallel parking. Losing space is a little problematic.
Well, let us, Dustin and Chris and I go get some designs. I mean, we're gonna have to spend some money to do that. We can do that. And let's bring that back for a future meeting till we already have the one with parallel, Paul, so we have that one, and to see what it would look like for the commission. We'll bring that to the commission first, and then we'll then we'll have some dialogue with the county.
When that committee meet again, we met. Can't remember the name.
The tiers,
Yeah, but we need to get.
We can. we definitely can, Paul, if that,
Well, the downtown,
Yeah.
the downtown master.
yeah, the
plan.
not the master plan, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking more, the tiers is kind of now,
The other one, whatever I'm on.
that's the TERS. Yeah, that's the tax increment reinvestment zone. Yeah, we can definitely do that, Paul. Why don't, one of the commission let us start there? Let us meet with the tiers board. Right now, they're only meeting annually because we haven't spent any money. Let's start there. Let them, we can voice some of that because we do have county partnership on that board. And maybe we can work that way back up to the commission and see if we're all good. Just would like to have it all buttoned up before we move forward with construction of Fourth Avenue.
Oh, I agree, we need to get it on board.
Maybe that's a work session, Joe, not
Yeah.
just at a meeting where we could.
I think so. So let us run some, we'll have to run some dimensions, and Dustin and I and Chris, we're trying to gather some of that information in Tanner to see some of that from Freeze and Nichols, who originally did the plan. Let us continue to do some more research on that and gathered information. Bring it to the tiers board, have some dialogue on that, and then we'll bring it. It will take some time to do that. Dustin, you have any more to add on that?
You were forecasting on that, Joe, when would you need to have that kind of settled? Just so that they have an idea of what that looks like.
Fall 27, Chris?
I will say that, we've got the 20, that's kind of us being a little optimistic. The way the EPO is trying to operate, might give us the opportunity to move that. So we can certain.
And if it moves back, it just goes to 29-30, maybe, I think, a year. And that would kind of where we thought,
Maybe 31 if that's.
31 will lead us. So
And we're not leading the charge on those date changes, that's all through the MPO and just changes that they're doing and we just don't lose our place in line is what it boils down to.
That's correct. We're in line. So, and we took action on that last meeting. Okay. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate the feedback.
Bring that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Paul.
Any more questions for Bo, or Bo, do you have anything else?
That's all I had, unless you had any other questions, any other projects, any other interest? That's everything.
A lot going on.
Yes, there is. Thank you.
Okay, item number 10, consider and take appropriate action on Canyon Police Department 2025 annual report and 2025 racial profiling report. Chief.
Thank you for letting me present this to you. The police department's excited to present our annual report for 2025. The first, I want to say, and Megan's not here, but she's the one who puts all this together. She always puts on here that this was prepared by Steve Brush. And really, I just provide all the numbers and she makes it look good. So as we get into it on the first page, it's okay. Probably something we put in there that we shouldn't have. Sean's gonna shut us down. So the first page of the report is just a letter that I always put in the report, and in this letter I wanted to I took a little paragraph to recognize the people that work for us, the city employees as well as the police department. 2025 was a rough year, weather-wise, and just between the events we went through and moving into the new building, and we were beginning to recover from our personnel shortages. So the people that work for us really did a great job, and so I wanted to recognize them. And of course, I wanted to recognize the citizens of Canyon who supported our bond project, and of course, you as the commission who supported us in everything we've done, and y'all always show us great support, so I wanted to say in public, thank you, that we really appreciate y'all's support and your input and everything you do for us. And of course, the whole city staff, the city management and city administration, and the other city employees, lots of city employees do stuff for us that they don't a lot of times get credit for. And we just appreciate those guys. So I just kind of wanted to say that publicly so that they could be recognized. The next page of the report is our organizational chart, which really hasn't changed. We've added people. We've added people in our school resource officer area, and that's been a huge help. The annual report works off of the calendar year. I should have said that at the start. It's not a fiscal year thing, which kind of divides and makes some changes when you read the budget report and the pages that are in the budget book. But it's really all the same numbers, just different time frames. But the department has grown. We, as you know, we now cover every campus within the city limits with a Canyon police officer. So that's a huge plus for us. I think that helps us make our city, our schools much safer. So super happy to announce that. The rest of the organization has mostly stayed the same, and we continue. We did grow that in '24 by adding an officer with a grant, and that guy's in the second or third year. I think the third year, we're moving into the third fiscal year, and so that's been a huge help to get our patrol division up and keep up with the growth of our city. The next page of the report is the accreditation overview. Not a lot has changed in the accreditation program. That's still a huge part of what we do. We still want to be accredited and maintain that high standard, which is something we work really hard at doing. That Matt Coggins handles the majority of that and making sure that all that's in line. And he does a great job of that, and he keeps us going with that, and that's something we will continue to do in the future. There is a little change since that was written. There's getting close to 250 accredited agencies in Texas and the number of Texas law enforcement agencies is approaching 2,700. So it's still a very small number, and we're super proud to be a part of that. There will be changes in the upcoming year. Texas Police Chiefs Association has listed 13 new standards that we will have to meet. Some of those will apply to us, and some of them won't. They're all school-based law enforcement standards. So some of them will apply to ISD police departments, and some of them will apply to us because we provide SROs for the schools. Haven't really got into those a whole lot, so I don't know where those will go, but it just shows we're going to meet those standards, and we're going to continue to be accredited. As we get into the actual numbers, the overall calls for service this year have increased, or for 2025 increased, while offense reports went down. That just shows that we're going on a lot of stuff, and a lot of times people just need our help, and they don't really have a criminal offense to report. So that's a pretty good balance there. The offense reports only went down 3%, so not a huge change there. Part 1 crimes are pretty even for us, and drunk driving arrests stayed the same. We were way down in minor in possession and minor in consumption arrests this year. Don't really have an answer for that. I don't know what caused that. As far as citations, we were up in citations. I kind of attribute that to we're getting our strength back on patrol and getting people back to the number of people we're supposed to have. So that's going to increase our traffic enforcement and that kind of thing. As we talk about the citations there, that number went up quite a bit. And when we get to the racial profiling report, you'll notice that the numbers are different, and racial profiling is simply the count of traffic stops, not the number of citations. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Traffic accidents are pretty even from 2024 to 2025. You can see that property damage was down, but personal injury was up. So that it kind of balanced our numbers, but the personal injury, just to let you know, that doesn't mean that 81 people rode in an ambulance. That just says at the wreck scene, they told the officer, yeah, it hurt my head, but I'm not gonna go to the doctor, I'm not gonna do anything about it. The officer puts down possibly injured and it shows up as a personal injury accident. Part 1 crimes are really our biggest jumps in Part 1 crimes were rape and assault. And of course arson, we jumped from 0 to 1. It was a 100% increase. But the assaults are those just fluctuate with the times. I don't have a real good answer as to why those may or may not happen. I want to talk, the larceny theft went down. The majority of our thefts are reported probably from Walmart. And as Walmart changes policies and changes security officers and goes through that fluctuates our numbers a little bit. So those are gonna change over time. They may go way back up if we get somebody really, really hard working out at Walmart that likes to catch a lot of shoplifters and call us and prosecute those, then that'll move that number up. On the drug seizures, those numbers on the drug seizures, those are criminal cases that we made or reported. That's not the amount of drugs. But we did change that up a little bit. Instead of having an other or a miscellaneous different synthetic versus non-synthetic kind of drugs, we listed all the drugs. As you can see, like in 2024, we didn't have any mushrooms that I noted. But in 25, we had 2 cases where we had some mushrooms. You don't see a lot of mushrooms. That's a different deal. The pills, we had lots of pills, but there were only 2 cases. And then marijuana was up and THC was about the same. We are seeing more meth as cocaine kind of goes away. Cocaine's getting pretty rare, but meth is increasing and we start to see that. The animal control numbers, we did some changes in this section too, just to be able to provide a little more information. You can see there that the impounded dogs and the reclaimed, we changed the reclaimed and to where they're actually reclaimed by the owner. The same with the cats. And then we added for dogs and cats both whether they went to rescue or to adoption. And that just kind of clarifies the numbers a little bit to show that most of the animals we're capturing they're not being reclaimed by owners. They're going to adoption or being rescued. Just kind of supports our idea that and some facts that we know of that we kind of get dumped on in town once in a while. People have these large litters of cats and dogs and they'll bring them to town, to the park or wherever, some public place, drop them off for us to have to collect and deal with. The wild animals, I made some changes there too this year, just to, instead of having miscellaneous wild animals, just to kind of show you some of the animals that we're dealing with. Bats are the big one. Bats carry rabies sometimes. And there's protocols in place by public health district that if we catch a bat in a living space, that we generally have a potential for a bite. And so we'll send that bat to Texas Veterinary, whatever it is, TVMDL, and they will euthanize and test that bat for rabies. So that then if the bat tests positive for rabies, then they'll contact the person so that they can explain the process should they choose to start treatment in case they got bit. Bats, I didn't know this until I got into the animal control business, but bats can bite or scratch you and you not realize it. They have very sharp little like razor-like teeth that don't cause any pain, but they can infect you with rabies with those little bitty bites. And then just some other animals that we deal with. We don't wild animals have, as the city grows, has decreased, and I assume it will continue to decrease. It's mostly the outlying areas of town where we end up dealing with wild animals.
Don't see any deer on that list.
Because they run down the creek in the middle of the night and get out of town before everybody wakes up, or when everybody's waking up and starting to drive. The racial profiling report, and I'm required by Code of Criminal Procedure to present this to you as the governing body and also to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. For the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, they've implemented a rule that I have to submit that by March, and that was submitted on time with these same numbers. Because of the change in our layout of our design, on the second page of the racial profiling report, you can see the overall numbers there at the bottom and next to the picture of the car. Like I said, that's different than the number of citations. The total stops were 4,138, and we only knew the race of the driver on one of those stops, and that's strictly an officer's. That's just dependent upon the officer to check that box if they knew the race of the driver before the stop. We don't have any way to really verify that or check that. The location of the stop, it's actually supposed to be the location that the violation occurred at, and this is just a data collection point where we're trying to see where most of the enforcement actions being taken. We did not have any number of complaints against racial profiling. In all honesty, I'll share that we did have a complaint of racial profiling this year, but it was related to a stop on a criminal investigation that did not have any traffic stop relation to why they stopped the car, because it matched the suspect description of the vehicle and it wasn't related to a traffic violation. So we don't report that on racial profiling because racial profiling is strictly motor vehicle stops. But to be honest with you, we did have one complaint that we were racial profiling a person. We weren't, but that was the complaint. So just wanted to be upfront about that. While I'm talking about racial profiling, these numbers could change in the next couple of years. The Texas Commission, the legislature charged the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement to review the racial profiling data or collection data, and with Mr. Price's blessing, I applied to be on the committee to review that, and I've been going to Austin and meeting with these other members of the committee, and we've been reviewing that. The plan is, and it'll be presented, I think in June, to the full commission to try to make some changes in the racial profiling, not the laws. We can't change the laws, but just in the definitions and how it's applied. When we run our ticket numbers, we just pull our ticket numbers out of the system, and I don't know if that ticket is from an actual traffic stop or from a crash that the officers investigated and wrote a ticket. And I got on this committee and found out that most places, or a lot of big places, are not reporting traffic crashes. They're reporting strict motor vehicle stops. So if we change the rules, it'll change those numbers, but it should make better, more accurate data across the state and make reporting more balanced between agencies on what they're actually reporting versus what they're not supposed to report. The last thing I wanted to share, and this goes into Bo's budget book report. Why I haven't ever combined the two, I don't have a real good reason for it. But we in 24 we were the 54th safest city in Texas, and in 25 we bumped back up to the 19th safest city. So we're proud of that fact. I don't know where these people get their numbers, but I'm going to go with it as long as it's good for us. And so just once again, the department's doing a great job. Everybody's working really hard, and we're we're back up to full strength, counting the two we have in the academy right now. And I think that's we're kind of getting level back out where we should be, and the city is a safe city, and we're trying to provide a professional service for our citizens, and so we hope to continue that as we continue to improve. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I didn't cover a lot of the racial profiling numbers. I figured y'all can look at those as just numbers. As always, when you look at the numbers, realize that we deal with smaller numbers than larger cities. So if you did percentage comparisons, the percentage comparisons oftentimes make us look bad, when in fact we're just not dealing with big enough numbers of groups of people to really make a good sample.
I'll move we approve.
Second thought.
All right.
Good job, Chief.
Thank you.
That's what we do.
Have a motion and a second to approve the 2025 Department Annual Report and the 2025 Racial Profiling Report from Chief Brush. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passed.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. All right, item number 11, presentation of hazard mitigation plan by Max Dunlap, emergency management coordinator.
Afternoon, Commissioner Mayor.
Good to have you.
How are you all this evening? I will try to make this brief. I know I'm standing between you and executive session. So tonight is just a brief overview of 2026 City of Canyon's hazard mitigation plan. I want to preface this presentation with a little bit on, so there's some discussion with Chris on the generators for utilities. That actually falls under the previous hazard mitigation plan. So these are on a 3-year cycle. So this is the up and coming cycle, and these projects that were identified, there is some overlap, but it also seems like it's a continuum of some of these also, which continues to be a priority in the city, which is fantastic. So as we go through, really the purpose and overview of this is, one, briefing you guys on what the action committee, this hazard and action committee that we put together with city stakeholders, has identified and prioritized as far as projects that need to be mitigated within the city of Canyon. Through our threat identification and risk analysis, we found 8 natural hazards that are in the city of Canyon, one being drought, flood, hail, lightning, tornado, wildfire, wind, and winter storms. So through those, and in each one of those hazards that were identified, there are action items that were voted upon in that hazard action team, that group, that prioritized and ensured that those projects are not fully shovel ready, but this is the next step of identifying and prioritizing what projects that we want to move forward with if and when we get grant funds. So that is where we get into projects that are kind of left over of FEMA kind of doing their own mitigation right now of trying to fix getting out of their budgetary issues. So we can start with drought. So we all know that drought is upon us and has been for a very long time. There has been many conditions of drought over the last handful of years. So this has been really going back more than 3 years that we are seeing a numerous amount of drought in the area, upwards of 401 weeks of active drought to some extent. So FEMA has different levels of drought, but in some sense or another, Canyon for over 400 weeks has been in some resemblance of a drought state. And therefore, those actions that need to be taken to ensure that we can either mitigate the impact of droughts on our area and our city are as follow. One of them being updating the contingency plans for drought conditions, whether it's curtailing water usage in the city or strengthening utilities via new projects, water mains, things like that. using water efficient fixtures, installing those on any new construction or build that the city may or may not be having coming on the books. Public education campaigns, ensuring that we're working on this together as a city to ensure that if that time comes, we're all understanding the why, that we all need to take it and make it a personal preference of that we need to help save water for our city. Moving into flooding, again, this does not need any introduction. The city has seen its fair share of flooding. So over the last 6 years, roughly, 24 major flooding incidents have been reported in the city. Downtown and other low-lying areas mostly affected. Again, there's multiple areas across the city that have been affected. Some of those actions that we're looking at taking are really upgrading our drainage infrastructure. So, CIP projects of our drainage plan. That is a massive undertaking, but it's a massive step forward into mitigating our flood issues here in our city. Retention basins, improving culvert capacities, dredging creeks, so digging out creeks to ensure their capacity can take that overflow. Ensuring that we perform that flood study on Spring Draw at some point as well. And then our planning efforts, ensuring that our master drainage plan is completed as soon as possible as it can move forward in that. And then our warning system. So as enhancements in the industry come, so there's early warning detections for flooding, for water levels, things like that. So reaching out and looking into those well above upstream from our city will help to mitigate, tie that into our notification systems, will help mitigate those issues and ensure that our citizens are warned timely, and that they can get out of harm's way. Moving into the next, to hail and lightning. Over the last 6 years, there has been at least 47 instances where there was golf ball size hail, at least reported here in the city. So again, with that comes massive damage to structure, property, overall damage to tree limbs. I know one of our last thing was doing green debris mitigation after the fact and cleaning up that debris removal of that. That was a big, large undertaking. So all of those things actually compound, but ensuring that we're looking into that public alerting system, that our severe thunderstorms are being warned properly, and our community is being warned as soon as the National Weather Service is aware of that and putting that warning tag out on those cells. Enhancing that alerting system. Again, we're automating our system. We've been doing so since and after and well before the tornado recently. So ensuring that those are automated to let our citizens know that, hey, there's something in the area, there's a storm that may or may not produce hail. Better be safe than sorry. Let's take cover. Let's batten down the hatches, so to speak, and get ready for what's coming. Lightning detection. So I know the city uses that already to an extent. So does CISD. Expanding on that concept. That is a very, very effective system of notifying the immediate public around there, as well as identifying anyone in the area. So the type of system that is currently being used here in Canyon actually has the ability to grow itself and be used through other systems. Very important information in ensuring that we're expanding upon that. Infrastructure hardening. So this is strengthening electrical grid components, backup generators, installing surge protections, hail-resistant infrastructure across critical facilities. Doing the best to put a little bit of funds up front to ensure that we mitigate that loss on the back. Really, the rule of thumb when it comes to mitigation funds is really $1 or even a handful of dollars equals at least 3 to 4 times in mitigation and recovery funds. So it really is worth the money up front for any mitigation efforts and funds that need to be expended. Right-of-way tree trimming program to ensure that those trees aren't overhanging our electrical lines. They're not overhanging the street to the extent of should they fail, should they fall, that they could either impact a passing car or impede traffic and therefore interrupting our critical infrastructure of our roadways in the city. Moving on to tornadoes again, this has impacted us more than most in the area. There has been a number of tornadoes for the last handful of years. 9 touchdowns confirmed in the county just since 2020, causing well more than $1.4 billion in damage. Trying to ensure that we are notifying our public as soon as possible, ensuring that our storm shelter program expansion through PRPC is put out through our public communications as much as possible. So for those who don't know what that is a program, it's a grant program where costs can be shared with PRPC and the homeowner to purchase and install storm shelters in their home. Building code updates. Building code, very few realize that building code actually plays a massive part in mitigation factors when it comes to construction of current, new, and existing homes. Some of them are built to resist heavy wind loads, some are built to resist heavy snow loads. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. So when we're talking about here, we're not getting 4 and 5 feet of snow at a time, but we do get wind loads. So ensuring that our structures can withstand the winds that the Panhandle has and that the city of Canyon gets very, very often is very important. And then again, it's an ongoing continued mitigation effort, but our public education, whether it's notifying through social media, websites, anything like that, or just setting up a booth in a public area and just getting out and talking with the community, ensuring that public education of how our citizens can be empowered and empower themselves to take these efforts in their own homes.
Max, will you just do a brief reminder of how we set off the sirens?
Yes. So our siren system is currently controlled by our office. Our sirens have a threshold and a criteria of if there is known storm, funnel clouds, tornado warning. All of those meet our criteria to sound sirens. Currently, our sirens can be sounded within, I would say, 30 seconds of a known issue. This last example was it was sounded within about 5 seconds during the tornado of notification. But that is a notification that comes from the Weather Service. We identify it. They tell us this is it. We're also monitoring radar. Once that comes across, if it's a warning, automatically goes out as a siren activation. Those signs are activated. We have areas. Our system is so vast that we have areas that we can compartmentalize if we want to, or we can do an all call, which is all of our siren system. In this case, all of Canyon was sounded multiple times during the tornado. To include, we can actually use some of the sirens north of Spring Canyon, like we did that night, sounding that up in that area in conjunction with the cities to ensure that area where the storms were was notified. And again, sirens aren't the only tool that we use. The AMA alerts, our text messages, all of those things, Everbridge, those are all automated notifications to our citizens. It is an opt-in. We also utilize the other side of that coin, which is not an opt-in. It is I can force a text message to anyone's cell phone in the area as long as they have their emergency notifications turned on their phone. And if they don't, I cannot guarantee it to get to their phone, but I can force text messages to anyone and everyone's phone in Potter County, in Randall County, excuse me. So moving on to wildfires, again, this is something else we can sound sirens. Joe, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It's good just to recap how that goes down.
Wildfire mitigation, again, there is a lot of urban interface areas in the city of Canyon. What that is where rural meets urban, meaning there's green space, there's trees, and then there's residential area. Having to mitigate that through vegetation management, making sure that trees are trimmed up to appropriate level, grass is kept low, ensure there's defensible space around that area. These are all things that are very highly recommended and required for a lot of homeowners insurance, but it's also extremely good practice for all homeowners to understand why. So that also goes back into that public education piece, getting into that public awareness campaigns of sharing why we need to be trimming our trees back, putting them up 6 to 8 feet off the ground. Also that defensible space. Agency coordination, so partnering in the Firewise program are also other mitigation actions that were found to ensure that we're partnering with the Texas A&M Forest Service on pretty much getting those that is their entire job. They can come out and actually help either teach a class on FireAware for our citizens, or they can actually help mitigate certain areas of the city themselves through the Firewise program, where they'll bring out their SAR crews, they'll bring out their chippers, and we can start actually getting some massive work done. We talked a little bit about windstorms. Since 2020, roughly 87 high wind events have been recorded, with some of the peak gusts reaching upwards of 80 miles an hour. Again, tree trimming is a commonality throughout all of these mitigation tactics. It It is common practice for land ownership, for anything in the city. Here, a lot of our trees grow very well, but sometimes they die very fast. And some of these trees aren't always seen as dead internally, but there is a risk and a mitigation. So having tree trimming services and ensuring that those programs exist and can be offered, or at least we communicate to our community where they can get more information for these programs. Again, infrastructure reinforcement, power systems, backup power systems, high wind resistant coverings for vehicles, roofs, window coverings on facilities, city facilities, anything to mitigate any damage from debris, wind-driven debris, falling trees, hail, anything like that is a mitigation aspect for city facilities. Again, handful of dollars up front is 3 or 4-fold on the back end of mitigation. Moving into winter storm impacts, again, no stranger to the area of those. Roughly 13 winter storm events in the past 6 years. Hardening winter infrastructure when it comes to winterization, ensuring that our utilities can take sub-freezing temperatures as we've experienced in the last handful of years. Ensuring that our emergency protocols are up to date of how are we going to respond to some of these types of winter storms. Understanding what is the difference between a watch and a warning for anything, whether it's a severe thunderstorm watch or warning, or is it a blizzard warning. Those are big differences. In short, watch is you find your helmet, warning is you put it on. That's really in short. But it really comes down to the fact of public education, ensuring that our community members know what the difference is and what they can do about it. So as part of this process, we did do a public-facing survey to ensure, in addition to this public meeting, of kind of getting some feedback from our citizens. So during the survey that we conducted, as of now, only 57 citizens have responded through that. So some of the responses are, I talked about watch versus warning, so 89% of respondents are familiar with the differences. Hazard concerns, most of them, so almost 88% of who responded feel that hail is the most frequent cause of property damage. Thunderstorms and wildfires are also cited. Their levels of concern, so they're extremely concerned or very concerned regarding wildfires and drought. Again, two very serious issues that we're dealing with as we speak. Sheltering and evacuation, citizens estimate an average of 8.8 minutes to seek shelter or 31.3 minutes to evacuate. And then finally, notifications, communications. 54% said communication is effective. 79% receive automatic notifications. Primary methods of notifications were local news station, outdoor warning sirens, and then text messages from the city. So all of these are mitigation actions that our mitigation action team have identified. And if you have questions, I can get into a little bit more of the prioritization of every one of these tasks and actions that the team has decided to take. But again, this is the process of submitting this to FEMA in this next iteration of our hazard mitigation program, our plan and our program for the city. With that, I will take any questions or concerns. All right, thank you.
Thanks, we appreciate you, and we appreciate what OEM, especially has done this past year. I know you all took a big role, especially in tornado and down and right and early, helping take the bull by the horn to,
I might live in Amarillo, but I will tell you, and I said every time I get to stand this podium, my heart is here. To the point of I was showing my mother a few houses here not 5 hours ago. So, and she's moving down from Colorado. So I love this city. I will live and bleed for this city. So thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate all y'all's efforts.
We will be getting together a little bit more and doing some more project scoping in the near future on that. So just got a lot of things in the fire right now.
All right, very good. That takes us to item number 12, executive session pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney, and 551.072, deliberations about real property. And with that, I have 6:21, and we will adjourn into exec session.